folks. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're all very, very welcome, whether you're watching live this morning on Zoom or tuned in later on to one of our recordings, or indeed listening in on or watching in on YouTube or our podcast channel. You are very, very welcome. Delighted to have you with us today. My name is Rob McGee. I'm the CEO here at Ingenio, and we have two businesses that are very, very focused specifically on helping people get hired by technology, software, and SaaS businesses. I guess, look, the purpose and objective of this session that you are tuned into today is all around helping you in the job interview process. And this is a topic that we've been exploring in great detail over the course of May. Over the last couple of weeks, we've got a really interesting session today, and then we're going to wrap up on that topic next week. So look, it's great to have you with us. And just in terms of an introduction, what we are talking about today, and what I'll be dealing with in a good bit of detail is how to handle a job rejection. So what do you do when you get the disappointing news? But clearly, you know, for a lot of people, they're very, very used to getting these types of messages, and it's really, really important that you take the message out of that, or take the positive out of that, I should say. And look, why am I talking to you about this? Clearly, we have built a course, and we sell a course specifically to help people like you get hired by that cohort of organization. And on the other side of our business, we are a recruitment agency that works with some of the best and most interesting and most exciting technology organizations out there. And we are dealing with the issues, the pain, the problem, both from a client and also, really importantly, from a candidate perspective, day in, day out. So I think we're really well placed to be able to, help guide and advise and assist you through this process. So let's kick off in terms of the content. So very clearly, when and again, I want to kind of paint the picture here. So you've been through either, a first or a second or a third, or indeed maybe even a fourth or a fifth round interview. And what happens is you get a notification, whether that's via email or whether that's via phone call. You get a notification from someone to say, look, I'm really sorry, but you've been unsuccessful. You've been unsuccessful in either in your application or indeed in the process. And look, I think there's a couple of really important pieces of information that I want to kind of flag in terms of rejection, right? But the first and most important thing that you need to go and do is you absolutely need to get the feedback. Because if you don't get the feedback, it's going to be very, very hard for you as an individual to be able to really learn anything from the process that you have gone through and have been through. There is a really, really important and powerful trick that we advise all of our candidates to do when they get an interview. And we talk, by the way, I spend a whole module in our course talking specifically about this, right? So I'm not going to go into the level of detail today that I do in the course, but there's a trick and a hack that we advise and help all of our candidates who are interviewing for, which is in an interview to ask for the feedback before the interview finishes. And if they can't provide the feedback in the interview, you get and gain commitment from the interviewer that someone is going to respond accordingly to you with feedback, even if it's over email. Okay, so really, really importantly, and again, those of you who have been on these sessions before, we advise our candidates. There's a 4-part kind of formal structure to an interview that you've got to go through, right? So there's the client session, there's the you story, there's the two-way Q&A, and then there is the close wrap up actions. And really importantly, feedback is part of that final section. Okay, so look, if you don't ask for feedback in the interview, if you don't ask for feedback in the interview, then look, shame on you for not asking for it, because it's unlikely, if you don't ask for it, it's unlikely that someone will give it to you. And that is really, really important. There is no better time to get feedback than literally right at the end of the interview, live, as it is relevant, as it's probably pressing, as it's on someone's mind. And listen, you know, look, there's always a really difficult, there's a fine line between, you know, between people. Sometimes people are quite afraid to give direct feedback. But look, if you're dealing with a strong, experienced hiring manager, typically what I find is that people are perfectly happy to give direct and straight and honest feedback. And that's really, really important. So look, the very first thing I will be saying to you is, in an interview, you need to be asking for the feedback, either there and then, or that someone is going to respond to you within a certain period of time to be able to give you the feedback. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if you think about what happens in an organization, so after an interview, there's a little get together, there's a huddle, and that could be, clearly at the moment it's digitally, right? So it's over Zoom. It could be using an ATS platform for feedback collation, or it could be a very quick conference call. And that is basically how did Rob do in that interview? Is he the type of guy that we want for this role? Is he a fit? Does he have the experience, the skill set? Is he culturally correct? Were his answers and his responses aligned with what we want? And typically what happens is there's a decision made there and then. Okay, we either want to progress Rob or we want to reject Rob. And the longer the time elapses from when that meeting or that decision happens to when you get the feedback basically diminishes in kind of value, or in terms of power and impact in the interviewer's mind. So it's really, really, really important that you are in a position to be able to get that feedback as quickly as possible. Because, being quite honest and frank, what happens either with a recruiter or someone in HR or hiring manager, they're on to the next individual, or they're on to their job, or they're on to the next candidate, or whatever the case may be. So it's really, 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 really important that you are in control in as much as you possibly can around getting the feedback as quickly and as promptly, and ideally in the session itself or in the interview. Okay, so first thing, feedback. Second point on this one is LL stands for lessons learned, reflect and adjust. So what I'm talking about here is when you get the feedback, and then also maybe you take a little bit of time to maybe sit back and you know, you basically maybe sketch out in a journal. And I talk loads about this in our course, right? That maybe you sit back and you reflect a little and you say, okay, let me remind myself about that business, about that organization that I applied for. Let me remind myself about the role that I applied for. Let me remind myself about the team that I was going to be working in. Let me remind myself around the salary, the comp, the constructs of the package. Let me remind myself about how did I perform in my application. Let me remind myself about, did I network correctly or appropriately in advance of an interview? Let me remind myself as to how I performed in the interview. Let me remind myself how I followed up after my interview. We spoke about that last week, okay? And I think that there's probably, 7 or 8 questions there that I'm asking. And I think the key thing is to say, you know, look, it's probably very, very easy to be able to maybe score or mark yourself out of 10. How did I get on? How did I do? How did I perform against each of those areas? And then what are the lessons learned? So if I was going to do it again, which maybe I am because I've just been rejected, what would I do differently? How would I be better? If you've scored yourself 7 out of 10, how do you get yourself to an 8 or a 9? What are the key things? What are the tricks? What are the hacks? What are the nuances? What are the things that you would go and do differently? What are the lessons that you've learned off the back of that? And then really importantly, it's adjusting your actions, your activity, your approach, your engagement, taking into account all of those lessons learned and putting them into practice then for your next application. Again, really, really, really important that you don't just take a rejection and don't do anything differently and then crack onto the next one. That is like there's a foible there in terms of obviously going and kind of and doing that, right? So I think that's really, really important. So after every single rejection that you get, just afford yourself a little bit of time. I know you're going to be disappointed. I know you're going to be, disheartened. I know you're going to be a little down. And look, maybe you don't do that in the immediate aftermath, but maybe you do that within 24 hours. It's really, 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 really important. Okay. And the last point, and again, I think there's 2 points I wanted to make here. By the way, I love the icon here, which is a magical unicorn, right? But which really, what I want to do here is I really want you to keep a very strong positive mindset, despite the fact that you've just had, could be a big blow, it could be a small blow, whatever the case may be. There's a couple of points that I wanted to make on this one. Strong positive mindset. So look, the very first thing when you get a rejection is you need to lose well, okay? And the reason you need to lose well is that a client will absolutely remember that. How you show up and how you respond to disappointment, it will be really telling, and it will show the hiring manager, HR, the recruiter, whatever the case may be. It'll show them that you're a really decent sort of individual, and that you're the type of individual who can manage disappointments and knockbacks and everything else like that, because that's what would be happening in a job. Okay, so that's the first thing. You need to show up and respond to the rejection, okay, and front up to that. That's the first thing I will say to you. The second thing I will say to you is that in recruitment and in hiring and in HR, people move and change jobs all the time. So the guy or the girl who was the hiring manager who made the decision, or the girl or the guy who was in HR that maybe you had a bit of a clash with, or the hiring manager or maybe the team member who maybe kind of chipped in the interview and said, I don't really think Rob's going to be the guy for us. Those people leave and they move on and they change jobs all the time. So look, it's amazing how quickly things can kind of come around on the basis of kind of change. And look, the market is so volatile at the moment and so buoyant that we're seeing people move even more so than they maybe had been a couple of years ago. So look, that's really, really important. To my first point about losing well, we have had this month in May alone, we have had 3 candidates accept offers from clients, and over the course of their notice period, they've changed their minds for a myriad of different reasons, okay? And that reflects typically a really buoyant market whereby maybe they've had another opportunity that's come in that they perceive to be better or higher paid, or they've had maybe a counter offer from their existing employers. Excuse me. So look, it's really, really, really important that when a client has gone through a hiring process that might take 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks long, they get themselves a candidate, they've contracted, they've signed an offer, they've committed, and then that candidate pulls out for whatever reason. What they'll be doing psychologically in their mind is they'll be saying, who was second best, who was third best, who really impressed me in the process, and it works like that. So look, you know, be ready for that, and it's really, really important that you handle the rejection accordingly with that one. The last thing I wanted to say, just on the strong positive mindset, we offer, you'll hear me talk a little bit about it, we offer, and I offer a one-to-one directly with candidates. And that one-to-one session, I've found certainly over the last 6 weeks, is that a lot of people are basically using that session to really G themselves back up, or re-energize, or refocus, or whatever the case may be. And maybe recentering or refocusing in on some of the positives, some of their attributes that they really want to kind of sing and shine about. So look, if you're in that mold, or if you're in that kind of frame of mind, there's definitely something we can go and do to help you on that one. If you want some more information on that, Alex and Lisa and the team can come back to you. Just type more info in the chat, but definitely happy to help on that. Really keen to get the questions, folks. I've had a number of questions obviously come at me on social media over the last couple of days in prep for this. So look, start firing the questions into me, and we'll go through them now, literally in 30 seconds. So look, just again to remind you, if you're not aware, Ingenio Learning, 90% of our students get hired in 90 days. That is a stat, it's a metric. It is a proof statement that I am unbelievably proud of, And look, you can see what some of our students are saying about us. Our students literally come from every cohort, every background. Some are really experienced, some are really inexperienced. Some come from industries that are not in tech, and others have been in tech for all of their careers. So look, I genuinely do think that there is something in Ingenio Learning, in this How to Get Hired course, for everyone. Just wanted to show you really quickly, this is what our curriculum looks like. So when you buy the course, it's split into 4 sections. So the first section, really, really importantly, is all around career counseling and career coaching. Some really, really high value stuff. And it's the foundation for our course. The second is really helping you to understand not what technology is, but how technology businesses are structured and organized, so that you can show up and be really, really presently aware as to what those types of businesses are all about. What job, what career, what role are you going to go and do? And we definitely don't want someone who says, I'm a business analyst, but I'm also a software developer and a project manager. Absolute nonsense, and a client will look at an application like that accordingly. And then the last one is obviously helping you get hired. So there's 20 modules in the course, and then there is an absolute mountain load of content with sessions like these that we upload on a weekly basis, that you get direct and exclusive access to. So that's really, really important. These are the clients that we will help you get hired by, okay? And look, some phenomenally large names, and some other organizations that you've maybe never heard of before. Gift to everyone who's tuned in today. So look, the course normally retails at €100. We're offering a 70% discount for anyone who's tuned in live today, €30. And that offer expires this Friday. So you'll be getting some information and some details that you can tune into on that. And look, I mentioned the personalized one-to-one piece. As I said, if you want more information on that one, type it in the chat box. We'll come back to you.